Jokes turned to fear. The sniper unmasked herself and stunned them all. Emotional story. The military base buzzed with the usual morning energy as soldiers prepared for another day of training. Among them walked Maya Chen, a petite woman barely 5 feet tall, whose gentle smile and soft-spoken nature had earned her the affectionate nickname Mouse from her fellow recruits. At 23, she seemed more suited for a library than a battlefield, often seen reading books during breaks while others engaged in rowdy conversations. "Hey, Mouse, you sure you're in the right place?" joked Sergeant Jake Morrison, a towering man with arms like tree trunks. "Maybe you should try the cooking unit instead of combat training." His comment drew chuckles from the surrounding soldiers, but Maya simply smiled and continued adjusting her gear. The mockery had become routine over the past 6 months since Maya joined the elite military training program. Her quiet demeanor and small stature made her an easy target for jokes. Even during physical training when she struggled with the heavier equipment, the comments never stopped flowing. "I'd bet she couldn't hit the broadside of a barn," whispered Private Tommy Williams to his buddy Marcus. "What was the recruitment officer thinking when they let her in?" The two men snickered as they watched Maya carefully clean her rifle, her movements precise and methodical. Captain Rodriguez, the unit commander, had initially shared similar doubts about Maya's placement in his combat unit. During her first week, he had pulled her aside and suggested she might be happier in communications or medical support. "There's no shame in finding the right fit," he had said kindly. But Maya had politely declined, insisting she belonged exactly where she was. The jokes intensified during weapons training. While other soldiers boasted about their shooting experiences from hunting trips and previous military service, Maya remained silent about her background. When asked about her experience with firearms, she would simply say she had some practice and leave it at that. During their first marksmanship test, Maya's performance was average enough to keep her in the program, but nothing that impressed anyone. She hit her targets consistently, but without any remarkable precision that would silence her critics. If anything, her mediocre showing seemed to confirm everyone's assumptions about her capabilities. "At least she won't accidentally shoot herself," Marcus had commented after watching her score, "but I wouldn't want her watching my back in a real situation." The sentiment was shared by most of the unit, though none were cruel enough to say it directly to Maya's face. The training facility was located in the mountains of Colorado, where the terrain provided perfect conditions for various combat scenarios. The base housed over 300 soldiers from different specialties, but Maya's unit of 25 was specifically focused on advanced combat techniques and special operations preparation. Maya shared a dormitory room with Sarah Kim, a sharp-tongued soldier from Texas who initially found Maya's quiet nature irritating. "You're like living with a ghost," Sarah had complained during their first month as roommates. "Do you ever talk about anything other than asking to borrow soap?" But as weeks passed, Sarah began to notice small details about her mysterious roommate. Maya would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and stare out the window for long periods, her eyes focused on distant points that Sarah couldn't identify. When asked about these midnight vigils, Maya would simply say she was having trouble sleeping. There were other oddities too. Maya's personal belongings were arranged with military precision that exceeded even the strictest requirements. Her boots were positioned at exact angles, her uniforms hung with perfect spacing, and her few personal items were organized in a way that suggested years of disciplined living. The most puzzling aspect was Maya's physical conditioning. Despite her small frame, she never seemed winded during long runs, and her endurance during extended training exercises was remarkable. She would finish obstacle courses that left larger soldiers gasping for breath. Yet she did it so quietly that few people noticed her impressive stamina. "There's something off about that girl," observed Lieutenant Davis during a private conversation with Captain Rodriguez. "She's too calm for someone new to military life. Most recruits are either nervous wrecks or trying too hard to prove themselves. She's just present." Captain Rodriguez had noticed the same thing but attributed it to Maya's naturally reserved personality. "Some people are just quiet," he reasoned, though he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Maya Chen than met the eye. The unit's dynamics were typical of military training groups. Jake Morrison had established himself as the unofficial leader among the enlisted men, his combination of size, experience, and natural charisma making others gravitate toward him. Tommy Williams and Marcus Johnson formed his inner circle, always eager to laugh at his jokes and support his opinions. Sarah Kim was emerging as a leader among the female soldiers, her quick wit and fearless attitude earning respect from both male and female colleagues. She was one of the few people who didn't actively participate in the jokes about Maya, though she didn't defend her either. The training schedule was grueling, designed to push soldiers beyond their comfort zones and identify those with the mental and physical capabilities for special operations. Days began at 4:30 in the morning with physical training, followed by weapons instruction, tactical exercises, and classroom sessions on strategy and military history. Maya excelled in the academic portions of training, often scoring highest on written examinations about military tactics and weapon systems. Her knowledge seemed unusually comprehensive for someone without prior military experience. But when questioned about her background, she would only mention lots of reading as her source of information. During tactical exercises, Maya displayed an uncanny ability to assess situations quickly and suggest effective strategies. However, her suggestions were always delivered so quietly and humbly that they were often overlooked or attributed to common sense rather than tactical brilliance. The mountain training facility included multiple shooting ranges designed for different types of weapons and scenarios. The main rifle range extended out to 500 meters, with targets placed at various distances to test accuracy at different ranges. There were also specialized courses for pistol training, moving targets, and combat simulations. Maya's performance on these ranges remained consistently average. She would hit her assigned targets with reliable accuracy but never displayed the kind of exceptional marksmanship that would impress the instructors or silence her critics. Her shooting stance was textbook perfect, her breathing controlled, and her trigger squeeze smooth, yet her results were unremarkable. "She's technically sound," admitted Sergeant Morrison to his friends after observing Maya during a training session. "But there's a difference between hitting targets on a range and performing under pressure. I still think she's in over her head." The psychological pressure of constant mockery was beginning to show subtle effects on some soldiers, but Maya seemed immune to it. She continued her quiet routine, maintaining her equipment with obsessive care, studying her manuals late into the night, and approaching each training exercise with focused determination. Her only visible emotional reaction came during a particularly cruel joke from Tommy Williams, who suggested that Maya would be better suited as a target holder rather than a shooter. For just a moment, something flickered across Maya's face. Not hurt or anger, but something deeper and more controlled. Sarah, who happened to be watching, later described it as the look of someone who was carefully restraining themselves. The training facility's most challenging feature was the advanced marksmanship course, which wouldn't be introduced until the final phase of training. This course included long-range targets up to 1,000 meters, moving targets, and scenarios designed to simulate real combat conditions. It was whispered among the soldiers that performance on this course would largely determine their final assignments. As Maya's first month of training neared its end, the jokes about her abilities had become so routine that even she seemed to anticipate them. When weapons were distributed for cleaning, someone would inevitably comment about hoping she knew which end was dangerous. When tactical scenarios were discussed, her input was received with polite but dismissive nods. Yet those who paid close attention might have noticed that Maya never seemed surprised by these comments. Instead of the hurt or frustration that might be expected, she displayed a patience that seemed almost rehearsed, as if she had anticipated this treatment and had already decided how to handle it. Captain Rodriguez was beginning to plan the next phase of training, which would include more advanced weapon systems and complex tactical scenarios. He had already mentally categorized most of his soldiers into likely specializations: Jake Morrison for leadership roles, Sarah Kim for intelligence work, Tommy Williams for standard infantry. Maya remained difficult to categorize. Her academic performance was excellent, her physical conditioning was surprisingly good, and her technical knowledge was impressive. Yet her unremarkable shooting scores and quiet demeanor suggested she might be better suited for support roles rather than frontline combat. The mountain weather was beginning to turn colder as autumn approached, and training exercises were becoming more challenging. Soon, the unit would face their first major test, a week-long survival and combat simulation that would push their skills and teamwork to the limit. As soldiers prepared for this upcoming challenge, conversations naturally turned to speculations about who would excel and who might struggle. Maya's name rarely came up in these discussions, except as an afterthought or the subject of gentle concern about her ability to handle the physical demands. None of them could have predicted that this quiet, unassuming woman was about to change everything they thought they knew about combat, marksmanship, and the true meaning of deadly precision. The jokes would soon turn to stunned silence, and then to something much more profound, a fear born of sudden, shocking revelation. The stage was set for Maya Chen to reveal who she really was. And when that moment came, it would shake the very foundations of everything her fellow soldiers believed about warfare, about strength, and about the deadly calm that lives behind quiet eyes. The emergency alarm shattered the peaceful Tuesday morning at exactly 0600 hours. Soldiers stumbled from their bunks, grabbing gear and rushing to assembly points as loudspeakers crackled with urgent announcements. All personnel to stations immediately! This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos as his unit gathered in the briefing room. We have a situation at the civilian research facility 12 kilometers north of here. Unknown number of hostile forces have taken control of the building and are holding hostages. Local law enforcement is outmatched, and we're the closest military asset. Maya felt her heart rate remain steady as she absorbed the information, while around her, other soldiers showed visible signs of nervousness. Some hands trembled slightly as they checked their equipment, and she could hear the sharp intake of breath from several colleagues who had never faced real combat. Intelligence suggests at least 6 armed individuals with unknown capabilities, the captain continued. The facility houses important research data, and civilian employees are trapped inside. We need to establish a perimeter and assess the situation before making any moves. His eyes scanned the room, settling briefly on each soldier before continuing. Jake Morrison stepped forward slightly, his usual confident demeanor intact despite the circumstances. Sir, what's our timeline? Do we know anything about the hostage's condition? Negative on hostage status. We need to move fast but smart. This isn't training anymore, people. Captain Rodriguez's words hung heavy in the air, and Maya noticed how the atmosphere in the room shifted. Jokes and casual conversation were replaced by focused tension and the serious business of checking weapons and equipment. The truck ride to the location was tense and quiet. Maya sat near the back, her rifle held with the same careful attention she showed during training, but something had changed in her posture. The relaxed, almost submissive bearing she usually displayed had been replaced by an alertness that seemed to emanate from her very core. Sarah Kim, sitting across from Maya, noticed the transformation. You okay, Mouse? She asked quietly, using the nickname that had become common among the unit. I'm fine, Maya replied, but her voice carried a different quality now. It was still soft, but there was an underlying steel that Sarah had never heard before. Maya's eyes were fixed on something beyond the truck's canvas covering, scanning terrain that others couldn't even see clearly. When they arrived at the perimeter established by local police, the situation became immediately clear. The research facility was a 3-story concrete building surrounded by open ground, making any approach extremely dangerous. Police barriers were set up 300 meters away, and officers crouched behind vehicles, clearly outgunned by whatever was inside the building. Captain Rodriguez quickly established a command post and began coordinating with the local incident commander. Through binoculars, they could see that the building's windows had been blocked or covered, making it impossible to determine positions of either hostiles or hostages. We need eyes on that building, Lieutenant Davis observed, studying the tactical situation. But anyone trying to get close enough for visual reconnaissance is going to be exposed across all that open ground. Jake Morrison volunteered immediately. I can work my way around to the east side, use that drainage ditch for cover. His suggestion was tactically sound, but it would still require crossing significant open space under potential observation. Too risky, Captain Rodriguez decided after studying the terrain. We need a better solution. It was then that Maya spoke up, her voice quiet but carrying clearly across the command group. Sir, there's a water tower 800 meters southwest of the target building. It would provide excellent overwatch position and allow for precise assessment of the situation. Several soldiers turned to look at her, surprise evident on their faces. The observation was tactically brilliant, but it came from someone they had consistently underestimated. More puzzling was her casual mention of the 800-meter distance, which suggested she had already calculated ranges and angles while others were still studying the basic layout. Lieutenant Davis raised his binoculars to locate the water tower Maya had identified. She's right, he confirmed. That position would give us eyes on the entire facility. He paused, then added with some confusion. How did you spot that so quickly? Maya didn't answer the question directly. Instead, she continued with her tactical assessment. From that position, it would also be possible to provide precise cover for any ground approach the team might need to make. The word precise hung in the air with unusual weight, and Captain Rodriguez found himself studying Maya with new attention. There was something in her tone and bearing that suggested capabilities he had never suspected. "The problem is getting someone up there without being detected," Sergeant Morrison pointed out, "and maintaining communication while providing useful intelligence." "I can do it," Maya said simply, and the certainty in her voice made several people turn to stare at her. Tommy Williams couldn't help himself. "Mouse, this isn't target practice. We're talking about a real tactical situation with lives on the line." For the first time since anyone had known her, Maya's expression shifted into something that could only be described as coldly professional. "I understand exactly what we're talking about," she replied, and something in her tone made Tommy step back instinctively. Captain Rodriguez made his decision. "Chen, you'll take the overwatch position. Morrison, you'll lead the ground element. I want constant communication and no unnecessary risks." He handed Maya a radio headset and studied her face carefully. "Are you absolutely certain you can handle this?" "Yes, sir," Maya replied with such quiet confidence that it surprised everyone present. The approach to the water tower required Maya to move through terrain that would test all of her training. She would need to cross open fields, navigate through a small wooded area, and then climb the tower without being detected by anyone who might be watching from the research facility. As Maya prepared to move out, she transformed before everyone's eyes. The hesitant, quiet recruit they had known was replaced by someone who moved with fluid efficiency and obvious tactical knowledge. She checked her equipment with motions that were second nature, adjusted her rifle sling with practiced ease, and studied the terrain with eyes that seemed to catalogue every potential advantage and danger. "Stay in contact every 15 minutes, Captain Rodriguez instructed. If you encounter any problems, fall back immediately." Maya nodded and began moving across the open ground toward the tree line. Her movement pattern immediately caught the attention of experienced soldiers watching from the command post. Instead of the awkward, uncertain movements they had expected, Maya flowed across the landscape like someone who had done this many times before. "She moves like a ghost," Lieutenant Davis observed through his binoculars. "Where did she learn to do that?" Jake Morrison was studying Maya's progress with growing amazement. "Look at her route selection. She's using every piece of micro-terrain for concealment. That's not something you learn in basic training." Maya reached the tree line and disappeared from view, but her radio check came exactly 15 minutes later, precisely as instructed. "Overwatch, moving to position, no contact." Her voice was calm and professional, betraying no sign of stress or uncertainty. 30 minutes later, Maya's voice crackled through the radio again. "Overwatch in position, beginning surveillance." There was a pause, and then she continued with information that stunned everyone listening. "I count 6 hostile individuals visible through gaps in their window coverings. 3 on the ground floor, 2 on the second floor, 1 on the third floor acting as lookout." Captain Rodriguez exchanged glances with Lieutenant Davis. That level of detailed observation from 800 meters required exceptional visual capabilities and professional-grade optics skills. "Can you identify weapons?" the captain asked. "Affirmative. Mixed small arms appears to be civilian-grade hunting rifles and shotguns. No evidence of military-grade equipment." Maya's assessment was delivered with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was looking at. "Hostage status? I can see what appears to be 8 to 10 civilians in a ground floor room on the north side of the building. They appear unharmed but restrained." The precision and quality of Maya's intelligence was far beyond what anyone had expected. Her observations were detailed, tactically relevant, and delivered with professional clarity that suggested extensive training and experience. Jake Morrison's team began moving toward the building using Maya's intelligence to avoid detection. As they advanced, Maya provided continuous updates on hostile positions and movements, demonstrating an ability to track multiple targets simultaneously while maintaining clear communication. "Ground team, hold position!" Maya's voice came through the radio with sudden urgency. "Hostile individual moving to east side window, second floor. He will have clear view of your approach in approximately 30 seconds. Morrison's team immediately took cover and waited. Exactly 30 seconds later, they saw a rifle barrel appear in the window Maya had identified. Without her warning, they would have been exposed and vulnerable. "How did she know he was moving that way?" whispered Marcus Johnson to his teammate. The answer came a moment later when Maya continued her report. "Hostile has established position at east window. Suggest alternate approach route through depression on south side of building." Her tactical guidance was proving invaluable. but it was also raising serious questions about her background and capabilities. The level of skill she was demonstrating required years of training and experience that didn't match her official record. Overwatch, this is Command. Your intelligence is excellent. How confident are you in your target assessment? Maya's response would prove to be a turning point that no one could have anticipated. Sir, if required, I can neutralize the lookout on the 3rd floor from this position. Clean shot. No risk to hostages or ground team. The radio fell silent. Maya had just offered to make a precision shot at a distance that would challenge even expert marksmen, and she had done it with the casual confidence of someone discussing routine training exercise. Captain Rodriguez felt the first real stirrings of suspicion about who Maya Chen really was. Chen, confirm your last statement. Are you saying you can make a precision shot at that distance? Affirmative, sir. Clear line of sight. Minimal wind. Target is stationary. It's a feasible shot. Jake Morrison and his team could hear the conversation, and they exchanged glances filled with shock and growing realization. The quiet woman they had mocked and dismissed was revealing capabilities that suggested professional training far beyond anything they possessed. Stand by, Overwatch, Captain Rodriguez commanded, his mind racing through implications he was only beginning to understand. In that moment, suspended between the familiar world of training exercises and the deadly reality of live combat, Maya Chen was about to reveal the truth that would change everything her fellow soldiers thought they knew about warfare, about capability, and about the quiet woman who had been hiding in plain sight among them. The seconds stretched into eternity as Captain Rodriguez weighed his options. The hostage situation was escalating, with reports coming in that the individuals inside were becoming increasingly agitated and making threats. The local police were helpless, and his ground team couldn't advance safely with the lookout maintaining observation from the 3rd floor. Overwatch, describe your shot parameters, the captain finally commanded, his voice tight with tension. Maya's response was clinical and precise. Target is male, approximately 6 feet tall, positioned at northwest corner window 3rd floor, range 823 meters. Wind, negligible, less than 5 miles per hour from the southeast. Target is presenting profile view, stationary for the past 4 minutes. Clean backstop, no risk of over-penetration affecting hostages. The mathematical precision of her assessment sent chills through everyone listening. This wasn't the uncertain recruit they had known. This was someone speaking with the authority of extensive experience. Lieutenant Davis grabbed the captain's arm. Sir, her calculations are perfect. That's professional-level reconnaissance. Chen, Captain Rodriguez spoke into the radio, his voice carrying a weight of growing realization. What is your actual background? And I want the truth this time. The pause that followed seemed to last forever. When Maya finally responded, her voice carried a different quality. The mask was finally coming off. Sir, Staff Sergeant Maya Chen, formerly attached to the 3rd Special Forces Group, designated marksman with 47 confirmed targets across 3 deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq. I was reassigned to this training unit after completing a classified mission that required extended psychological evaluation. The radio silence that followed was deafening. Jake Morrison and his team, crouched behind cover 300 meters from the building, could hardly process what they had just heard. Tommy Williams felt his mouth go dry as he remembered every joke, every dismissive comment, every moment of mockery they had directed at someone who was, in reality, one of the most lethal soldiers any of them would ever encounter. Captain Rodriguez's hands were shaking slightly as he held the radio. Confirm your statement, Sergeant. Are you saying you're an active Special Forces operator? Negative, sir. I was medically retired from active special operations due to post-traumatic stress following Operation Blackwater in 2023. The official record shows standard medical discharge, but I maintained my security clearance and marksmanship qualifications. This training assignment was part of my reintegration evaluation. Sarah Kim, listening from her position with the command group, felt pieces of a puzzle suddenly clicking into place. The midnight staring out windows, the obsessive organization of personal items, the unnaturally calm demeanor under pressure. These weren't quirks of personality. They were symptoms of someone who had seen and done things that ordinary soldiers couldn't imagine. The jokes, whispered Marcus Johnson to his teammate. We've been making jokes about someone who could kill us all without breaking a sweat. But Maya wasn't finished with her revelations. Sir, My psychiatric evaluation is ongoing, but my operational capabilities remain intact. If you require confirmation, my handler is Colonel Patricia Morrison at Fort Bragg. Security clearance Tango 77. The name Morrison made Jake's blood run cold. Colonel Patricia Morrison was his aunt, a legendary figure in special operations circles. If Maya was connected to her, it meant her credentials were not only genuine but represented the highest levels of military capability. Chen, why didn't you reveal this information during training? Captain Rodriguez demanded. Sir, my orders were to integrate normally and demonstrate stable psychological adjustment to routine military environment. Revealing my background would have compromised the evaluation process. Maya's voice remained steady, but there was an undercurrent of something else. Perhaps relief at finally being able to drop the pretense. The tactical situation was becoming desperate. Through the radio, they could hear increased shouting from inside the building, and local police reported that the individuals inside were threatening to harm hostages if demands weren't met within the hour. Overwatch, do you have a clear shot on the lookout? Captain Rodriguez asked, making a decision that went against every protocol but might save civilian lives. Affirmative. Target remains stationary. I can take the shot on your command. Jake Morrison's voice crackled through the radio. Sir, if she eliminates the lookout, my team can advance to the building and establish entry points for assault. The weight of command had never felt heavier to Captain Rodriguez. He was about to order a woman his unit had spent months mocking to take a life in defense of innocence, based on credentials he had only just learned about. All units stand by. He paused, then continued. Chen, you are authorized to engage target when ready. Confirm when target is neutralized. What happened next would be burned into the memory of every soldier present for the rest of their lives. Maya's voice came through the radio with deadly calm. Target acquired. Wind still negligible. Taking shot in 3, 2, 1. The sound of the rifle shot carried across the distance a sharp crack that seemed to echo off the mountains surrounding the valley. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Maya's voice returned, emotionless and professional. Target neutralized. Lookout down. Ground team clear to advance. Jake Morrison raised his binoculars toward the third-floor window and felt his breath catch in his throat. The figure that had been visible there moments before was gone. At over 800 meters, with a standard military rifle, Maya had made a shot that most soldiers couldn't achieve at half the distance. Jesus Christ, whispered Tommy Williams. She actually did it. But Maya wasn't finished demonstrating her capabilities. As Morrison's team advanced toward the building, she continued providing precise intelligence. Second floor hostile, moving toward east stairwell. Ground floor individuals showing increased agitation. Recommend immediate entry before they realize lookout is compromised. Her tactical guidance was flawless, delivered with the calm professionalism of someone who had orchestrated similar operations many times before. The uncertain recruit was gone, replaced by a special forces operator in her element. The assault on the building proceeded with textbook precision, largely due to Maya's continued overwatch and intelligence. She tracked targets through windows, warned of movement patterns, and provided the kind of real-time battlefield intelligence that can only come from exceptional training and experience. When it was over, 8 hostages were rescued unharmed, and the hostile individuals were either captured or neutralized with minimal casualties. The operation that local police had feared might become a bloodbath had been resolved with surgical precision. As teams began securing the area and processing the scene, Maya climbed down from her overwatch position and began the long walk back to the command post. Her transformation was complete. She moved with the confident bearing of a seasoned combat veteran, a rifle held with easy familiarity that spoke of countless similar situations. When she reached the command post, the atmosphere was unlike anything the unit had experienced before. Soldiers who had spent months treating her as comic relief now looked at her with a mixture of awe, fear, and profound respect. Captain Rodriguez studied her face, seeing for the first time the person who had been hiding beneath the carefully constructed facade of uncertainty. Sergeant Chen, your performance today was exemplary, but I need to understand why the deception. Maya's expression softened slightly, and for a moment she looked tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. Sir, my last mission involved eliminating a high-value target who had been using children as human shields. The psychological evaluation determined I needed to demonstrate ability to function in normal military environment, without the hypervigilance and isolation that can develop in special operations. She paused, looking around at the faces of soldiers who were seeing her clearly for the first time. The jokes, the assumption that I was weak or incompetent. It was actually therapeutic. It allowed me to remember what normal military life was like before everything became about life and death calculations. Jake Morrison stepped forward, his face showing the conflict between embarrassment and admiration. "Sergeant, I owe you an apology." "We all do. We had no idea. You weren't supposed to know," Maya interrupted gently. "The test was whether I could maintain normal relationships and emotional stability while concealing my operational background. In a way, your treatment of me was exactly what I needed to prove I could still be a regular soldier when required." Sarah Kim shook her head in amazement. "All those nights when you would stare out the window, you were doing security sweeps, weren't you?" Maya nodded. "Old habits. Once you've lived in environments where relaxed vigilance can get people killed, it's hard to turn off the awareness." The implications of the day's events rippled through the unit in the weeks that followed. Training continued, but the dynamic had fundamentally changed. The woman they had called Mouse was now recognized as someone whose capabilities exceeded those of everyone around her, including many of the instructors. But perhaps the most profound change was in Maya herself. The psychological burden of maintaining her cover had been lifted, and she began to open up in ways that surprised everyone. She started sharing tactical knowledge during training, helping other soldiers improve their skills while maintaining the humility that had characterized her since arrival. The jokes stopped completely, replaced by genuine respect and the kind of professional camaraderie that develops when soldiers recognize excellence in their ranks. Maya began to smile more readily, and her interactions with others took on a warmth that had been carefully suppressed during her evaluation period. Captain Rodriguez received confirmation of Maya's background from Colonel Morrison, along with instructions that she was to be given the opportunity to continue her reintegration process while contributing her expertise to the training program. The official recommendation was that she be considered for instructor positions once her psychological evaluation was completed. Years later, soldiers who had served in that unit would tell the story of the quiet woman who had hidden among them, allowing them to mock her while she secretly possessed skills that could have ended any of their lives in an instant. They would speak of the profound lesson about assumptions, about the danger of judging capabilities based on appearance or demeanor. But most of all, they would remember the moment when jokes turned to fear, then to respect, and finally to understanding that true strength often comes wrapped in unexpected packages. Maya Chen had taught them that the deadliest weapons are sometimes carried by the gentlest hands, and that the most dangerous soldiers are often those who never need to prove how dangerous they are. The sniper had unmasked herself, and in doing so she had revealed truths about courage, capability, and the profound responsibility that comes with lethal skills. Her story became legend within the military community, not just as a tale of hidden abilities revealed, but as a reminder that heroes often walk among us unrecognized, carrying burdens we cannot imagine while protecting lives we may never know they saved.